Howdy. Welcome back to Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person. The question is, are you lazy enough to want to make work optional so that you can retire early and move to any part of the country that you want to? Which is the purpose of today's video. Choosing a market. What logic chain will I follow to figure out which market to go to? Now, I've done this exercise once, but I'm just going to do it cold with you today, saying, here's the criteria that I'm using to pick my market. Most investors will do something silly like go, what's population doing? Go to U-Haul and see where the trucks are moving. Or they'll look at price to rent ratios. And none of that matters to me. I would move to a place where the population was quickly dropping to zero. I purchased a duplex in 2021 in a town that dropped by almost 30% in population the year that I purchased. And it's doing great. It's appreciated. It's making cash flow. I'm not looking at math that way. Math, like I did last week, is important. It's almost the last thing I consider. I wouldn't say I'm a typical investor when it comes to how I choose this, but I'm going to talk to you about why I'm picking a market, how I can pick a market, and then the rest of this video will be dedicated to answering the questions that you have in the chat related to financial freedom, retiring early, investing in real estate, or any other asset class that you choose, as long as you pick one and master it. Don't diversify too much into different asset classes, or you might not reach financial freedom. Or at least you might not do it at a young enough age to enjoy it, which is what I did. I didn't start thinking of money until I was 40. I was a single parent with 3 kids, got laid off from law enforcement, found out about a bunch of debt I didn't know about until the divorce, started teaching at a CDL school making $17 an hour. And every single year that I've been investing, some idiot was saying, you can't cash flow today. It's not worth it. Cash flow is a myth. Every single year that I was buying properties, and in a lot of those years, I didn't cash flow on the property that I purchased that year. But within 10 years, they set me free. At 52, I could have retired in 8 years of investing, but I stayed in my job because I loved it. I got demoted all the way down to president of the company after 7 years of investing in real estate and started making real money. And I loved the job. I had control of my schedule. So I worked for 4 more years, partly because I'm retarded, but mostly because I loved my job and I was testing my portfolio. But at 52 in 2022, after 12 years of deciding to save and invest in rentals, my first duplex I closed in 2013. So I almost owned my rentals 10 years. I retired and walked away from that job and will never have to work again in my life. But I find myself wanting to live in a different state. Now, I moved to the Pacific Northwest because I grew up in the Mojave Desert, a little town called Rosamond, California, the literal armpit of the United States, or a less attractive anatomy part that you can think of. And then I finished high school in Palmdale, which is again in the high desert. I joined the Marines to get out of the desert, and they put me in 29 Palms and Saudi and Kuwait and everywhere where there's just dirt. And so when I got out of the Marines, I looked at the whole country and I thought, well, it rains in the Pacific Northwest and it rains in Maine. And I've listened to too many Stephen King books to want to have anything to do with Maine. So I moved to Washington, where there is no R, but there is a high cost of living. So I was able to reach financial freedom, get the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units and make work optional. And I've enjoyed living here. I raised my kids here. I'm not moving out of Washington because of the laws related to politics. Most of the investors that I know that have told me don't invest in Washington because it's such a liberal state will say things like, it's really hard to pull a permit. It's really hard to get approval to do subdividing. It's really hard to get anything built in Washington because of the laws and regulations. And then they institute something like rent control. Or if you're in King County, it goes so far liberal that you almost can't own rentals, so that they instituted rules in around 2018-19 that cost them 3,000 rental units. They became short-term or they sold. So less rentals. People would say, well, you don't want to invest there. That's actually not why I don't want to live here. I like those laws. Those laws make it harder to build. Everything that I just said was a benefit to me as an investor. Now, I don't want to own in King County where the actual insanity happens, but it's spreading to the rest of the state slowly. That's still not why I want to leave. The rent control is making me, so 1 year it increased my cash flow, my intake of rents, about $2,900. The next year it increased it $3,300. I'm making a little over $100,000 more in the next couple of years in profit not just revenue, than I was going to make if rent control didn't exist. In the first couple of months of 2025, I actually emailed all of my tenants saying, hey, we did a rent increase last year. The binder strategy with all of them because they threatened rent control. And I said, in 2025, I generally do a 5% increase every other year. This is the other year. So there will be no rent increase in 2025 unless this bill passes and rent control goes into effect, which it did. Then there's a 7% increase. So there was a massive increase in 2024 because they threatened rent control. There was a 7% increase in 2025. There will be a 7% increase in 2026. Rent control is making me a ton of money, like tripling the amount of increases that I was going to make. So that's not why I'm leaving. It isn't that evictions can take longer. I can plan for those. I can have higher tenant screening. I can rely more on higher credit scores. I can go deeper into choosing my tenants. I can have a strong lease that I had a lawyer look at that I've retained for an eviction. And I can have big reserves. So I can be ready for evictions to take longer. I don't care about that. It isn't because of the weather. I am not a fan of cold weather. I love to scuba dive. I'm in retirement for the last 3 years. I've been to Portugal and Thailand, and I'm in Florida, the Australia of the United States. But I like to chase warm weather and good scuba. Wherever the scuba is good, that's where you'll find me. And the scuba in Washington has sucked since I've been here. So that's not a reason to leave. The winters do kind of suck. People say it rains a lot in Washington. I think it's illegal in Hollywood to make a movie and say this is Seattle without it being a rainy day. That's not been my experience. 8 to 9 months of the year here are about perfect and pristine. So I think as I move to another market, I'm actually going to come and visit Washington in the summer because I still enjoy it. The spring, maybe. I'm not a fan of the winters. I have mostly had outdoor jobs, right? I've been a Marine, a cop, and a truck driver, and those are 3 jobs that are basically stuck in the elements. So if it's not the winters, it's not the insane liberal laws that other landlords hate that have made me rich. I'm partially wanting to move because I don't want to be called a racist if I have national pride. I joined the Marine Corps and took that constitutional oath to defend the country. I became a police officer and took the Washington State constitutional oath to defend the Constitution of Washington. I have a strong sense of national pride. I've been around the world. I've been in combat zones. I'm a Desert Storm veteran. I know what happens if a country doesn't have strong borders, right? When Iraq invades Kuwait, the United States goes in because of the petrodollar and frees Kuwait. If somebody invades the United States, there isn't a savior going to come and save us to hold up the dollar like we did for Kuwait. So having a strong border is really important to me. Having national pride is important to me. But as a white male, if I say that I'm a proud American, I'm called a racist. Specifically in this state. In Washington, where there is no R, there is a lot of liberals. So it isn't the political climate and the laws related to landlording. I'm going to keep over half of my portfolio in Washington because these stupid laws benefit me as a landlord. But I want to live in a place with Americans who are proud to be Americans. And so what I'm going to do at the beginning of this video, while I give people a chance to get their questions into the comments or their hate comments because they hate the fact that I want to be proud of being American, fine. Find the block button because I'll find it for you. But I'm going to open AI, share my screen, and I'm just going to take you through the logic chain of here's how I pick a market, because it isn't math. It isn't population trends. It will be quality of life. Because I believe somebody is investing successfully in every single market. There isn't a market that you can't invest in. Yeah, some of them you might want to only house hack. San Diego, New York, San Francisco, the more expensive the market, the more impactful house hacking can be. And then you might want to invest at a distance. But a couple-hour drive is a distance that I can handle. So if I share screen, because I don't have a 10-year-old here to help me with the chat, I'm just going to use ChatGPT. Because it is the most liberal of the AIs out there that if I use Grok, I think it would be too honest with me. So this is basically just a question and answer to go through what is going to help me pick a market. Now, like I said, I did this before and it narrowed it down to 3, but I'm not even sure those are the 3 that I want to go for. So the first thing is, I want to make sure that in this chat, if you do an exercise like this, every time you talk to your AI, maybe you've told it to remember things about you, maybe you haven't. I want to create a prompt that gives it enough information to understand where I'm coming from. So basically, give it everything. Be as clear as you can. Now, I'm not going to type out everything. I might have to give some clarifying prompts as we go along. Let me make sure. Let me know if you're seeing the screen. Okay, good. So it is sharing the screen. So basically, I'm living in Washington State. I want to move. So I'm just going to ask questions to decide where. So first question, what are the top 10 conservative states? And why will my AI not work? So this narrows it down to, I don't want California. I don't want New York. I don't want Washington. I don't want Oregon. I don't want the states where you do something like I did here in Port Orchard, Washington, not to name them by name, but I put up a Marine Corps flag. And the TARDs down at the permit office thought it was a Trump flag. So they attacked me with permit stuff that I had spent the last year working through from 8 years before I owned the property. So I can eliminate by looking for a conservative state. Now, this will tell you how much I'm bothered by the liberals of this state. I am not an atheist. I'm an anti-theist. I see the damage that religion has done through centuries and is currently happening. I can actually name millions of deaths happening today because of Catholicism. Today, this isn't from a long time ago. So I'm like the anti-religion person. I would rather live in a religious state surrounded by religious nut jobs than liberal nut jobs. So you have to choose your crazy and see what matches for you. So this narrows it down to the top 10. And a lot of these are in the north where I'm at. I don't like the winters. So now I will go of these. Which have the mild winters. Neither of these questions are related to math or market trends or population growth. This is what I see people doing when they're picking a market. Now, a difference is I'm picking a market to move to. If I was picking a market that I wasn't going to move to, the most important criteria that I would use to pick a market would be trusted boots on the ground. Since I'm moving to this market and I can take the months to learn the markets that I'm moving to, I don't need trusted boots on the ground. If I was staying in Washington and going to invest out of state, I was going to invest in Gary, Indiana, because one of my really close friends, Millennial Mike, who is going on the cruise with us in June, if you're coming on the Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person cruise, the description, there's a phone number to call in the description for this video and all my videos. If you want to come along with us, I'm not charging anything. I'm not making a penny from this. But if you book the cruise, you can come with us and hang out for a week, June 21st to 28th on the Encore ship, which is a Norwegian ship. But he has his systems in place. He has property managers, he has handymen, he has contractors. So I would use his systems as my trusted boots on the ground. But since I'm actually moving, I'm narrowing down this market by where I want to live. And then at the end, because remember, cash flow isn't last, but it's close. So I've narrowed this down to now, let me see, Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi. Okay. So for some reason, these did not come up with the same questions, same answers that I had last time. So now let's eliminate areas with a high probability of hurricanes or tornadoes. This is literally narrowing down parts of the country to live in. So hurricane risk, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, some of the places it's named. Insurance is expensive, risks. Tennessee gets wiped out in one event. Your underwriter and weather, not just the property. So these are some interesting answers here. What's left? Low risk, stay above 40 degrees in winter, avoid hurricanes, avoid tornadoes. North Carolina, Okay. Don't know anything about those towns. Winston, Salem, is it different? It's probably not where they had the witch trials, right? South Carolina, Texas, we'll get to San Antonio. I have a nephew that lives not too far from there, so that kind of goes towards top of the list. So where do you want to live? Tennessee. So eastern part. So this narrows down not only just the state, but which part of the state. So in Texas, avoid the Gulf, avoid, hurricane, what do they call it? Tornado Alley or something. But in Tennessee, I got some towns that I think I've only heard in songs. So slightly cooler, mountains reduce tornado frequency, no hurricanes. Good. Okay, winter is borderline. Okay, North Georgia. Okay, short list. So we're down to East Tennessee. Is that right? I thought it said West Tennessee for slightly cooler winters. Did that say West? Oh, it said Eastern. Okay. You're probably balancing three competing factors: warm weather, low risk, disaster risk, strong investing opportunity. I don't really care about the investing because AI doesn't understand that usually. North Carolina. Okay, haven't even considered that. So the next questions, I took some notes here on questions I would want to ask. What question would you ask if you were looking at where you want to move to in the country? So let me look at your chat really quick. Considered Dallas, but I'm leaning towards Phoenix. I want to flee Portland, Oregon, so moving for personal reasons as well. Purchasing my first property, which I'll have to house hack. Life Unlimited. Okay, I'm with you there. North Coast, California. Howdy, Chris. Thought that was a suggestion for a second. East Texas welcomes you, and don't worry, the hurricanes aren't that big of a deal. We'll sometimes, right? East Texas. Okay. I have no desire to be around El Paso. I've been around El Paso too many times and don't like the proximity to Juarez. Just so everybody's aware, there will be a members only call at 6 p.m. tonight too. So it's got me narrowed down to some markets. So the next thing is, Millennium Mike with a super chat. Can't have a country without borders, language, and culture. Part of our culture is patriotism. I would hope. Yeah. What real estate calculator app do you use? Somebody asked me that in a comment today, and I answered it. So if you haven't seen the answer, if you asked it earlier, that is the CDS rental calculator app. Chandler David Smith, another YouTuber, an investor in real estate, different strategies than me, but it's very successful. Created the app. And I'll get to all these questions too. So come to Georgia. I don't know anything about Georgia. I'll have to do some research. All my stuff is moving into storage. So starting next week, I'll actually start doing some videos of walkthrough because this place will be empty other than security cameras, and share the address and say that it's for sale and let you know what's going in Washington. So current list price is $715 at area rents for on the water like this. It's only about a 3% cash on cash return at that price. So we'll see if I find investors that are interested in that in our market. We will see. I have a hard stop on where I won't go under for price. If it comes anywhere where it doesn't go for that, I'll probably just turn it into a rental. I don't mind making money. Job and population growth, infrastructure investments. Yeah, none of that matters to me because nobody has the data. Remote work is a game changer. I don't want to own in cities because it can really only be going down, but I want to own it within commuter distance of a city. So one of the places I was looking at, I can actually just show you that, I think. Let me see if I open this up. I'll share the screen here in a second. So my questions to narrow down the market that I look at aren't about math. The math will happen in that market. And I say that because everybody says, I can't invest in California. I can't invest in New York. Well, How's Jay doing in Rochester? How's my brother doing in Kern County in California? People say they can't find cash flow in Washington. I'm probably backing out of these deals, but I have 2 offers on cash flowing deals right now on the MLS with conventional loans. Talked about him in that amazing argument video with Brian Davila, who ended up not wanting me in his church because there was a part of that conversation that didn't happen on camera. So let me share the screen and show you how I look at this. So I don't want this type of map. I want, because I'm not familiar with this too much. I want layers. There we go. All right. So I'm looking at San Antonio. That's one of the cities that came up. No matter what city you're around that is large like this, I would not own in the city. I can almost guarantee that almost every large city like this is blue. I'd be surrounded by the liberals I'm trying to avoid in Washington State. And to be fair, they want me to leave too. Like, this is benefit both ways. But I own near Tacoma, but not in Tacoma. So in San Antonio, if you were to drop a rock right here in the middle of San Antonio, like it was a pond, and you watch the ripple of water that came out, I could start narrowing down these cities, these smaller towns, like, is this Castroville? I looked at Bernie up here above it, this Bernie, but it's kind of the Scottsdale price wise. But these smaller cities here, I'll be able to find at a specific distance that I haven't done the research on yet. So I'll have to travel there and do this myself. I'm not going to rely on online for this because I want to know the neighborhoods. At some point in a circle around San Antonio, there will be a price to rent ratio based on remote work. So not data from 2 or 3 years ago. This has to be current rents, what is renting today, and rent demand, that it's going to take me at least a month or 3 to figure out. I will find the cash flow that I want on deals here. Now, it could be, I haven't done the research yet. I know people who invest in Ohio that single family houses cash flow better than small multifamily. Here in Washington, it's the opposite. Small multifamily cash flow the best. Until I do the research, I won't have an opinion. There's a strategy that I picked up in 8 years of law enforcement. A police officer can't go to a crime scene, decide what happened, and then look for evidence to back it up. A good officer has to look at the evidence, formulate an opinion, and keep an open mind to change that opinion when new evidence comes up that says something else might have happened. So coming in here, I did a video recently on which rental should be your first. I'll basically use that premise. 4 units or less, because I want fixed rate debt and I want the low tenant turnover of as similar to a single family as possible. So that will limit me to 4 units or less, 30-year fixed rate debt. I'll have to look at the layout of the duplexes, houses with ADUs, single family houses, and fourplexes to see, are there many small multifamily here? And no one knows unless you've had MLS searches set up. Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor don't have the data. Every single deal I purchased showed up on those platforms months after I closed on it as pending. So I don't rely on those. I want MLS searches. So I'm going to look for an agent in this area. And this is just one of the markets I'm going to go look at. I will actually put all my stuff in storage, and I'm going to go spend a month or 2 in this market, in some of the other markets that I found that meet my criteria. Leans right, mild winters. If the summer's too hot, I can travel in the summer like I was in the winter in Washington. But then it's going to be studying the market to figure out what asset type works best here, and then deploy my funds. Now, part of this will be to find an area where I want to buy rentals. Part of this will be an area to buy where I live. And I don't have this disease that everyone I encounter seems to have of needing a forever home, the privacy of your own house. I specifically, in financial freedom, don't want my own house. I want either a house with an ADU, so it can be acreage with 2 houses on it, or a duplex or triplex or fourplex, because when I travel, I want someone living on the property. So part of my criteria isn't the limiting factor that so many people give themselves. If you give yourself the limiting factor that you want your forever home or your dream home, and it causes you to work an extra 20 years, was that worth the trade-off? Not to me. Having a house worth what I could afford with the millions that I have would reduce my cash flow and have caused me to work more years. So my goal was financial freedom. My goal now is I'm not tied to any one state. I can manage my properties from anywhere. If you start investing at a distance, I recommend having a property manager. I think Millennial Mike is doing it right, investing in Gary, Indiana. He has a property manager. Might have had to fire one or here, two here or there. But I grew a portfolio where I live and got my systems in place. Multiple handymen, multiple contractors, other investors in the area that I can help and help when they need something and rely on them when I need something. So then maybe you don't have to have a property manager. If you start at a distance, I wouldn't do it. So I'm going to move to this state and buy some rentals over the next few years. I might sell some of the rentals I have in Washington. I'm going to keep at least half of my portfolio here. So I would go through, and this is the advice that Millennial Mike gave in a video recently too. If you're buying a rental from an investor, you're generally buying their problem, right? My first one that I'm selling is a BRRRR project. I never did the refinance, right? So it was a self-funded purchase and rehab. So it's not really my problem. The reason I don't like it is it's so far from all of my other rentals that I'd have to have multiple sets of handymen and contractors available. So getting rid of it, and I don't want to live here because of my relationship with the city. That's not the property's problem. The next properties that I sell will probably be the one that doesn't have any debt on it, because the real asset of owning the rentals that I have is the low interest rate debt that I refinanced to. I bought almost all of my properties with over a 6% interest rate. When people said you couldn't cash flow, that interest rates were too high and wages weren't high enough and rents weren't high enough, and they were right. Because you're not buying to retire next month, you're buying to retire in a few years when those factors don't matter as much. So I'll probably be keeping the ones that have dialed in low interest rate debt. I'll be losing the house I had before the divorce that I've kept forever because it's paid off. There's no reason for me to keep a paid off house because I don't care about equity. The equity in a property is not my asset. The low interest rate debt being destroyed by inflation-based debt destruction that Jason Hartman talks about often is my asset. So my question to you is, if you're considering changing or moving markets, what questions will you ask other investors, your friends and family, or your AI bot to narrow down the places that you look at? So what I've got now on that list I shared is a few cities that I'm going to look at. I'm physically going to go to them. Like I said, I'm putting all my stuff in storage. Next week, it'll be in storage. So let's see how the Wi-Fi is wherever I end up. And I'll be staying here while this place sells for a little bit. And then I'll be traveling, learning markets, putting in the work. The power of financial freedom is that you're not tied to anywhere. And I might find I don't want to own anywhere. I might come back to Washington and purchase more rentals next to my others because the money keeps piling up. But howdy, everybody. Let me know how you pick a market, because I don't think I asked any of the questions everyone else would. It almost always comes down to the comments that I saw: population growth, job stability. Now, when I pick a market, it is going to come down to how many economic drivers are there, right? There might be there's a nice little town, southern Arizona, that's really close to a military base, but it's the only thing there. And if there's a BRAC meeting, that base closes, that market's dead for decades. So multiple economic driver sources will be the requirement. There could be a city with a large population close by. There could be a ton of different factors that I'll look at once I pick the market. But picking the market had nothing to do with the math. The math happens once I've narrowed it down. That means which asset type, which I might purchase where I live in a small town like Hondo. I might purchase where I rent in that Castroville that was closer to San Antonio. I know for sure I don't want to own in the big city, any of the big cities, but how far out do I want to own and what type of rentals there make the most sense? That's the research that will happen. Boise, I eliminated because of weather. Phoenix, I found cash flowing deals there when I looked years ago. Apparently the market's completely shifted there. So it would be the same thing. How far out would I go to where I found the balance of what I went? And it might be the edge of Mesa. It might be that college town to the south. The whole country is open, but I can eliminate most of it due to weather. Many of it due to politics, natural disaster risk. It's pretty easy for me to narrow it down. What matters to you? That's what I'm curious about. Don't forget, every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. And some kids get chicken wings. Nice. I think people mentioned Texas. I did mention Texas. Yep. So there was somebody that mentioned Texas. Yep. East Texas welcomes you. Yeah, definitely. Life unruled. How about this weekend? What is going on this weekend? I missed it. Are we going to a little vacation? No. You're going to Portugal for a little vacation? Nice. Straight from the beautiful island of Hawaii, another place that was instantly eliminated. So Alaska is eliminated due to weather, although that's where the cruise is going in June. So the weather's not that bad there usually. Hawaii is eliminated because I'm a haole, and I don't want to live where everyone hates me. One of the reasons I'm leaving Washington is everyone hates anybody here who has a brain. Kris, getting things built here for now. When kids are grown, I'm ready to retire. I'll start looking and heading somewhere else. I'll start looking before, maybe look at a different country. I did the same thing, Kris, by looking at another country. There are countries I could absolutely retire to and stay out and be just fine. I kind of hate the visa permit process. Why is America the only place that you're allowed to come and don't get kicked out? In Thailand, they actually had, in the US, we have DUI patrols, like checkpoints. They had they had visa checkpoints. You drive through, they checked everyone's papers. If you were in violation or a day over, you were arrested, fined, and banned for life. Like, that's how a real country does it. Hello, brand new here. Good to see you here, Big Will. Their members only is tonight at 6 o'clock. We are going to probably look at deals. If somebody brings one to look at, that's fine. But I might look at some in the markets I'm considering. Talked about the calculator app that I use. ChatGPT hates white men. You might want to consider Grok. That is very true. That's why I used chat, is because it's so racist. Is vodka why this is possible today? No. In commiseration of my mother, it's Port Gallo. Basically engine sludge. I don't know why she drank it. I don't know if I'll continue that. Ryan, howdy. I have a video coming up with Jason Hartman Thursday, and I have an interview with Erica Williams. I think it's going to be live. Erica Williams, if you haven't checked out her channel, she is in Texas. She has a brain. She might be one of the contributing factors to why I'm choosing Texas. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Believe that is tomorrow, live at 3:20 Pacific. I have to look. My memory is terrible. Don't hold me to that. But I would appreciate if people show up in the chat and say something supportive, say something nice about Erica. Show her that we have a nice community where it is okay to disagree, to have disagreements. P turned RE, 20,000 on hand, 21,000 in reserve. Need to get real creative and disrespectful. House hack number 3. That house hacking does make it possible. Awesome. Flex time. Coast to coast. Howdy. I love your channel. I'm joining late. Apologize if you already touched on it. Wouldn't you prefer buying where there is rent control based on other videos of yours? That is kind of a factor. That is why I'm keeping over half of my properties in Washington State where there is no R, but there is rent control. So since half or more than my portfolio will always have rent control and I will benefit from that, I'm not so concerned about it where I move to. So not a contributing factor to the decision yet. Could be when I narrow it down. And Jasek, PE turned RE, you should have a shower on site. I think so too. Coast to coast thinking Vegas or St. George. I was looking at St. George. I think that's the one that's down by Zion, if I'm remembering it right. That's on my list of potentials. Come to Georgia. Melodic investor. Tell me why. Give me some of the benefits to Georgia. I'll have to do some research because it's one I haven't considered. I think it was the weather that turned me off to there. I'm not sure. Real requirement is a toilet on premise and no birds. There you go. Dungeon Dojo. I feel you finally went under contract on a home in East Texas and moving down at the end of March. Congratulations. Awesome. Northeast Florida is a great area and lower hurricane risk, plus very much a buyer's market now. Yeah, I think somewhere near Jacksonville in Florida is a really low potential, but trying to keep an open mind. Ben, howdy. Long-time watcher, and you the one all the time. I live in Nashville and invest in Memphis. Give me a shout out if you make it out your way. I will. So from what I did on my first research, it was anywhere in Tennessee except Nashville and Memphis. Like that was the two cities that it said don't go to. But Tennessee is possible. A possibility. What security camera system use? I use the Arlo system. Easy to move around, just requires Wi-Fi. I use it anytime I have a vacant unit and at my own house. So there's 3 cameras here set up right now. Yeah. Andrew, maybe the Democrats aren't crazy and you're just a crazy Republican. It's entirely possible. It is entirely possible. It's open to debate. There has to be sane and insane people on both sides of every argument like that. But show me the Democrat who can say something positive the Democrats have done for the country, because it isn't open borders. It isn't men and women's sports. It isn't transitioning kids. Those are the 3 things that make me a Republican. Like, I believe in gay marriage. I'm not pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. It should be required until you're in a committed relationship, you both agree to it, and you have the funds to raise a kid. Like, that's how far left-wing I am with abortion. But the main things that make us a country are what make me a Republican. I believe in we should enforce the gun control laws that we have, right? If you are mentally unstable, if you are a felon, sure, no guns for you. If you don't have the, what do you call it, impulse control that I would like to see with that. But I'm Second Amendment pro, right? So got issues on both sides. But here's the test. Go to a Trump rally wearing a rainbow shirt. Maybe get laughed at. Maybe get some odd looks and some questions. Go to a Democrat rally wearing a MAGA hat. You'll either go to prison for defending yourself or you'll get killed. Pretty easy to decide which side of the fence I'm going to be on there. Andrew, also what happened to buying in red counties in blue states? So that might do it. The lean right is because I'm moving for quality of life. I'm still keeping my properties in red counties and blue states, losing the ones that don't have any debt on them to redeploy the funds, and the money keeps piling up in the bank. But that is a strong, not requirement, but want of mine. And that's why Texas is kind of top of the list, because if you're in Texas, don't take offense to this. That is the state closest to flipping. All the research that I've done, it is the state closest to going blue. So that would be my red counties in a soon-to-be blue state, but areas that aren't just completely liberal. Take a while. Good. I invested 30 minutes from the capital to stay away from the city too. That's my goals. 30 minutes to an hour and 15 with remote work. Poland is a good place to move, safe for sure, and it sure has some scuba diving, Jason. That is true. And like we talked about in Vegas, they have the best border control that we should take a message from. Bo Rivers, what do you think about buying a portfolio of single-family homes from an investor? Obviously, assuming it would be a good deal, they would be older houses. Depending on what you mean older, I don't want anything newer than 2005. That's kind of my criteria. I don't want anything newer than that in my market. When I study the new market, it could be different. And I don't like too many things older than 1979 because of paint and asbestos, but depending on the market, they might all be older than that. I would look at buying a portfolio. It depends on the debt structure. If I can get 30-year fixed rate debt on it, and like you said, depending on it being a good deal. I prefer single family homes. I've just never bought one as a rental because they don't make sense in the market that I invest at. Flex time, are you selling your portfolio and moving the cash into a new state? Kinda. Like I said a little bit ago, I have one paid off property and one that I purchased all cash. Those will be the two that I sell if I find a new market to move to. I'm selling one no matter what because it was intended to be a live-in BRRRR or a live-in flip, so it'll hit capital gains. I get the IRS 121 rule because I've lived here more than 2 years, so some of the taxes and depreciation recapture is gone. I don't have to worry about that on 50% of the structure. But the other one that's paid off, I will only sell if I move out of the state to redeploy the funds. If I stay in the state, I'll probably just keep it because it's dialed in. Easy tenant, hardly ever happen. I think I talked to her once in the last 12 months and once or twice the year before that. So why mess with that? Invest in Charlotte, maybe, after I do some research. I'm looking at Mesa. Mesa was it? I mean, I grew up in the desert and I don't really want to go back to the desert. That's another my criteria is I don't want too desert-y. But Arizona desert is not like the Mojave Desert, right? I went to my friend lived in Scottsdale. My son lived in Chandler. And so I spent a bunch of time there and everybody's like, oh, Phoenix is the desert. Bull dookie. The desert doesn't have deer, pigs, or hogs, or whatever you want to call them, or life. The Mojave Desert is you're dead if your car breaks down. That's the desert. Weather, culture, people, and cost of living for now. I like Queen Creek, Arizona. Alex, there you go. I hear somebody might own an alligator there, though. Angry Capitalist, howdy. Just got out of Muay Thai. Nice. Howdy from Reno, Nevada. Deconstructing Dreams. Good to see you here. Alex, I'm probably just going to follow you in a non-creepy way. Is there a non-creepy way? I almost want to say your name, boss, but I have two in Montgomery. Nice. There you go. Momo gets money. Howdy. I'm bullish on Dallas. Texas in general is the state of the future, in my opinion. Everybody that I talked about Texas says, oh, be careful of the taxes. Blah. They're half of what they are in Washington. Washington taxes reset every year. Your assessor recesses value every year. Basically like Texas, except the median income is, to be not poor is $130,000 a year here. So the Democrats only identify as sane. There you go. That flipping nurse. Howdy. Would you go under contract completely sight unseen? I've always have. I've never seen a property. No, I take that back. I looked at one when they countered and I was going to accept because I couldn't figure out if it was a duplex or a house. This one that I'm in because it was listed really bad. But all my other purchases, I've never seen them. I make offers and go under contract. I've got the 2 offers out right now. We're negotiating back and forth on the math. I still haven't seen them. They've never looked at a property. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to live there. And if I am going to go and look at it because I'm going to live there, that might be a little different. And I say never looked at a property. That's as an investor, right? As a home buyer in 2000, I looked at several houses before I bought one because it was my first one. And I didn't know what I was doing. But right now I'll make, in a market where I want to find properties, I'll make 20 to 40 offers. And who's got time to go look at those? I might not get an answer on any of them. So yeah, I've definitely gone under contract. I have an appraisal, a financing contingency and a inspection period, 5 to 10 days, depending on the market that we're in, or I can back out and keep my earnest money. What is it about the keypad locks that you like? No lost keys, don't have to change locks. I've never had a tenant lockout in over a decade because I have 2 exterior doors that have coded locks on them. I could change the codes for handyman. I could change the codes for tenants. Yeah. How many my brother David has keys for all of his stuff. I don't know how he keeps it straight. His lock box looks like a sock drawer. I have keys somewhere. We've never had to use one. I've had one Schlag lock break after probably being in the property for like 8 years. And I just replaced the lock, so I didn't even need the key to do that. I think the thing I like about it the most isn't everything that I just said. I think it's that I own Class C properties, right? They're not in nice neighborhoods, not in good school districts. I don't want good school districts. They're in safe areas, but they're not upscale. Alex went and saw one of mine the other day and he looked at it and said, I don't think he thought I wouldn't own a place like this. And I'm like, this place makes me almost $4,800 a month. I'd own 10 of them. But the tenants in Class C properties are just not used to not having keys. It is an upgrade that is tangible to keeping tenants happy, and happy tenants stay long term. It's the main reason why I like the coded locks. And take hike. Thanks for your book. Oh, thank you. I hope the information helped you. Kenny, howdy. Josh, howdy. Somewhat new to the channel, working on my own multifamily portfolio in Buffalo, New York. Nice. Well, welcome to the channel. I do a live stream every Tuesday, as long as the questions last, basically. And then I do a video on Thursdays and Saturdays that usually covers a topic. I have a free course at diontalk.com on the binder strategy. So Dion, to spell it right, diontalk.com, on how to get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent, which makes it a lot easier to find cash flowing deals on the MLS. And not running them with current rents, but where do you know rents will be within 6 months? I don't know everything. I am a part of a community. Most of us call it the one rental at a time community because Michael Zuber got together a bunch of different investing strategies. So if you want to invest at a distance in multifamily, in short term, in buy the room, like there is someone in this community that we can refer you to just in case it isn't small multifamily, buy and hold, super lazy, trying to reach financial freedom in a decade. There's a bunch of other ways to do this. Dividend Dave, howdy. Good to see you here. Brian Builds Wealth, howdy. Have you ever watched No Bad Capitalist? I like his go where you are treated best and contemplating second citizenship and moving abroad. Kinda. I think that's a concept I didn't finish when Kris mentioned going to another country. I've considered it. I went to those countries actually in 2023, right after retiring. My brother and I went to Portugal for 2 months and we looked at real estate. Like I went all along the Algarve. We stayed in 4 or 5 days in each of the small towns. I think Alvor was the one that was looking at where I would like to be, maybe Lagos. If I didn't find in Alvor what I wanted, I wanted to be right there along that part of the coast. I like the Benagil Caves being so close, so that anybody that comes and visits, you have something really cool to take them to. But instead, so Kris, this is kind of for you. Instead of investing in another country, I put more money to work in the US and used that cash flow mentally to pay for the housing when I travel. So that if I'm in Portugal, because my goal was to buy in Portugal, right? But then what if I wanted to go to Thailand? Well, now I'm not using my asset that's in Portugal. And I'm tied to, what if I go back to Colombia, right? Or travel parts of the US. Like all of those things got limited by putting my money to work on an asset. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is, I want to buy a short-term rental so I can use it when it's not being rented. I want to buy a boat and I'll use it when I'm not renting it out. No, that's to me, in my opinion, a dumb use of capital. I think we put our money to the least active form of making money to give us time freedom. And then we use that time freedom to choose where we want to go. So Kris, if you're looking in another country, I'd put your money to work here, learn how to manage it from a distance, and then travel wherever you want to go. Forever his name, like your name. Why not in a good school district? So I've got several things that people call Dionisms. I actually had an episode on BiggerPockets where Dave Meyer interviewed me on Dionisms. It came out, I think, last February. We've done one since then. But some of them are, I want my leases to end in the winter. That's backwards. That's a Dionism. My tenants set the rent, not me. That's a Dionism. And I do not want to own in a good school district. That's a Dionism. How many investors and how many real estate agents? Oh, you want to be in a location. You got to find a good school district. Why is this school district good? High taxes. They have more money to deploy in a school district. It's great. You are now paying more taxes, so your tenant's kid got an A. Good job. That's one detractor. But the main reason is I like tenants that stay for decades. They're in the house 20, 30 years when I buy it. They're there until they die once I own it. That's the tenant I like. The tenant that's in my paid off house that I might sell, she's been there, I don't know, 6, 7 years. I talked to her once, maybe every other year when we renew the 2-year lease. There was an issue there one time. I think there was a door issue. I think there was a door issue one time. So I don't see her going anywhere unless I sell it and somebody kicks her out and moves in or kicks her out and does something else. But if she was there because of the school district, her kids would have aged out and she would have left already. If you target good school districts, you are purposefully aging out your tenants in 5 to 8 years. I want decades of financial freedom from tenants who consider it their home, their house, That works in my market. There are some markets where it doesn't. That flipping nurse. Our investor Class C properties are going under contract almost immediately. The market is popping. I agree. So I wanted to start the video with, I'm glad I didn't. This was not going to be the topic today. This was just, I'm going to do this exercise and kind of narrow it down to look at some markets again. And I wanted to share that with you and get some suggestions from you on how to narrow down my market. The actual topic today was going to be, and this is going to be the topic for Thursday, the girl who cried wolf and the idiots that fell for it. And I'm going to talk about Melody Wright. She just did another video with Ken McElroy where they debated the real estate crash. And I have all of the facts to say that she's wrong in 2021, 2022, 2023, 24, 25, and currently that she's been calling for a crash for 5 years. But if you can tell by the tone of my voice, the video is going to piss me off because she is flat out lying using made up data. I can prove it. Like, there's a simple concept that I bet most people haven't thought of. A simple one that I'll just say it right now, but show up Thursday. The reason I didn't want to do it is because it's going to put me in kind of a bad mood. And then I was going to have to answer questions. And I want to be in a good mood when I answer questions. So picking a market, it's a good thing. It feels like I can answer questions. But after that video, I'm going to go work out. So the most recent data that she's using, this is how skewed it is. First of all, the data is wrong. She is saying it is the price to wage difference. And that's not true. First off, all the data is wrong because remote work is a game changer. No one has the data on what the median income is anywhere because remote workers don't have to live where the work is anymore. They can live 30, 45, hour and a half away because they only have to go to the office once a week, twice a week. So the commute doesn't mean as much. Or they're geo-arbitraging and living where it's cheaper and their wages are super high. So the price to wage is a retarded metric. But the other one, and I actually have a chart I'm going to show with this, is they always show the same stupid chart. They show, and I'm going to run my hands up the screen. They show wages are going up like this, not very fast. Home prices are going up like this. So they'll show wages and prices diverging. No screaming eagle shit, because we buy with leverage. If your wage goes up $15,000, you have $47,000 more of buying power. So yeah, wages will go like this, but because it's levered and we buy with mortgages, your buying power increases exponentially. So price and wage should diverge. But when you look at just the chart, people aren't making as much as the home prices are going up. End of the world. Retard. That's not how math works. If people bought all cash, sure, that matters. But since wages since 2020 to 2025 went up over $15,000 to the median income. That's almost $50,000 more in buying power. And then you add remote work. See how I got upset? That's why I didn't want to do this. That's the Thursday video. Market is popping. Steel Cruise, howdy. Can you tell us about your systems? Do you do quarterly maintenance checks? No. Do you do annual mainline water inspections? No. Anything else you do routinely? Routinely do what prevents lawsuits. So handymen that I hire are trained. I have conversations with them. When they go into a place that has septic, they look for flushable wipes in the bathroom and take a picture and send it to me. If they're fixing anything like checking for leaks or fixing the garage door going in tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. So I'll get pictures of everything else while they're at that unit of things that could be fixed or repaired. So my handymen that I have ongoing relationships with know what to look for because partially it could represent more work for them. But banisters are tested for tightness. Michelle, you sent Raul to me. Raul adjusted the banister at once, so he's putting some brackets in on for me. I will do once a year if I have two with HVAC. I almost always rip the HVAC out. As soon as there's a major issue, I'll rip HVAC out and put in cadet heaters or baseboard. But while the HVAC is there, once a year I'll have a handyman. In the beginning, it was me, but I'll have a handyman drop off filters, swap out the filter, and leave 3 more for quarterly swap outs for the tenants. So there's kind of an annual review. About a third of my tenants are Section 8, so the state does a review every other year. So there are reviews happening, but I've never done a water main inspection. I have it scoped when I buy it. So if there's anything that needs work on, I'll have it work. I've had some hydrojetted sewer lines, have them scoped afterwards, but not due to routine maintenance. Septic systems get pumped depending on your size of the unit, how many tanks there are, what bedrooms they're rated for. Like you can have a different ratio for that. Can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years, have them pumped. I use Damon, who's in the local Tacoma FI, which is now the Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person Facebook group. He just did 2 in the last 2 months, I think. So yeah, my systems are, I use the binder strategy for setting rents. So happy tenants are less likely to move, and it keeps my rents where they need to be. So if you haven't heard of the binder strategy, it's all over YouTube, and there's a free course at diontalk.com. I have at a minimum 4 handymen that I work with, and that is a rotation. Very rare for a handyman to stay a handyman for a long time because their life goes one of 2 ways. They're really good at their job and they become a contractor, which means good work, but too expensive for the small stuff that I like to do. They can make more money going and doing a project than going and doing a repair. Congratulations. You're now one of the contractors I'll work with on a bigger job, but you're not going to go fix a gate or rehang a door or anything like that. You're going to go and swap out a door if the jam is bad, right? You're going to do bigger projects. Or they spiral into rehab and you don't get to hear from them for 6 months. So they either go good or bad. But each handyman is generally good for 6 months to a year. Once in a while, you find a rare one that you use for years. I've got 2 right now that I've used for a few years that are great. So build that list. Let them develop relationships with the tenants. The first time they interact with the tenant, I'm involved. I might be in the group text or the group email. But once they've interacted with the tenant and it's gone well, and the tenant doesn't call you with the thing that I got once with, your handyman does a really good job when he's sober. Maybe don't use that guy again. But when you find a quality handyman whose life isn't currently spiraling and their work isn't so good that they have to charge you contractor wages, use them for repairs under $500, as long as it doesn't include, replacing an appliance or something. They can handle all of that. You might just see the messages. I use Hemlane. I'm slowly switching the platform over to Hemlane so that it's easier to list, and they can do work orders on the platform. You can collect rents on the platform. I haven't done that yet. I have very simple rent because I have a small portfolio. If you want real dialed in systems, a self-managing landlord with 150 plus units, that's the Lumberjack landlord, Matt, who does a live stream every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, right? My systems are, how can I travel and goof off and not have to think about my rentals? I just spent 3 months in Thailand, and together, all of the issues that I had for 3 months didn't total 2 hours. Even though in the last week, I had almost an hour of stuff to deal with because 2 things went bad in the last week. But altogether, 3 months, 2 hours. It isn't always like that. I have a tenant turnover going on right now. This month will probably take me 4 hours. That's why the average over a year is 2 hours per month. It's already listed. Alex went with me and saw that it was in a bad shape, but handyman shows up, cleaning crew shows up, couple of text messages to the garage door guy, and it's already listed. Like a tenant turnover can be a few days, but not my time. Right? The reason it's going to take 4 hours is because me and Alex went to look at it, which I didn't have to do. Handyman could have done video from me when he got there. I'm going to go do an open house listing Saturday from 1 to 3. So those are my systems. I keep it kindergarten simple. No LLCs. Everything is in my name. I have 1 checking account, 1 saving account, 1 credit card. This is as simple as it can possibly be. The bigger your portfolio, the more complex your systems might need to be. But that's why I'm such a Coach Carson fan of Small and Mighty Investor. I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. So while I'm moving to a new market and redeploying funds, I have 18 units right now. In a year, I'll probably have 18 units. I'm going to be buying properties, but it's not to grow the portfolio. It's to stabilize, diversify, move into a new market. What do I do routinely? And if your question, what else do you do routinely? I would have no clue what my net worth was. I probably wouldn't have an idea what my cash flow is if I didn't make a YouTube channel. If I didn't have YouTube videos that go out where I've whiteboarded some of this stuff. I'd have a fuzzy idea that it's more than I need to live on. But since I've done YouTube videos, I literally know the breakdown of the math because I've done the videos on it. So if you're an investor and you're not doing YouTube, you do not need to be as detailed as I am. And I am as least detailed as I can possibly be. Investing in real estate is so kindergarten simple, but people forget what it's like to not know something. Like if I said right now, teach me how to tie my shoes. Everyone who hasn't been a teacher will say, you grab the laces, you loop them through each other, you pull till it's snug, you make a bow, the rabbit goes around the tree and goes back into its hole. They'll say something like that. And I'll go, okay. So you forget what it's like to not know something. When somebody says, teach me how to tie my shoes, the first thing is there is a left shoe and a right shoe. One of them goes on each one of your feet. Here's how you tell which one goes on the left foot and which one goes on the right foot. These are the laces. We want to make sure that they're through the holes to the point where they're almost the same length. Like, you don't start investing in real estate with how simple I'm about to say it is. You buy a rental that makes more than it costs you and you hold it long term. That's real estate, right? But you're forgetting what it's like to not know something. How do you know it makes more than it costs you? How do you pick a market? How do you screen tenants? Like, there's so many little things about this that most investors just do, like, teach me how to tie my shoes. You just know to put it on the right foot. You know to put it on your foot before you tie it. Like, the simple concepts in real estate that most people don't think about. That's my video with Jason Hartman this week, because he overheard me at the One Rental at a Time event in Vegas, talking to person after person after person who came to me with their deal to look at, or their portfolio to consider, where they were talking about how much cash flow they got. And at some point I had started telling everybody, cash flow is important, but it's like it's almost the last thing I look at. It's like the eighth thing. Jason leans over and goes, that's what we want to do a video on, because everyone thinks a real estate deal is about the cash flow. That's 7 things I look at before I even run the math. Some of them impact the math. So what do I do routinely? It's easier to break down because of the YouTube channel, not because I'm an investor. Like, as an investor, my brother David reached financial freedom. He has 10 paid off properties. He has no clue what a cash on cash return on investment is. He has no idea what yield is. He couldn't tell you the math equation to figure that out. But he never has to work again. And he retired at 50. And he's had a decade of traveling with more money than he needs. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank right now to buy the next property. Almost anybody would trade their lives, because most people have to work the next 30, 40 years and probably die broke, to change to enough cash flow to be financially free and never work again, without knowing anything about the math. Because for me, it's almost last. It's still important to me, but it wasn't important to him. One of his first rentals he kept empty for 5 years because he didn't care about it. His goal was to grow his business, and his business didn't grow by fixing that rental and renting it out. Later, when he finally did it, it probably felt a lot better, but his financial freedom didn't come from running the numbers, having a system, being super detailed, choosing a market. He just bought what made sense. That's a good question, because I have to actually sit down sometimes when I'm thinking how to make a video on one of my systems, but I have to think about the system because I do it so simply. Nomad Capitalist talks about Malaysia a lot. He does, but I think he's the one. No, that was the economic ninja that at 41 had kids and had to go back to work. Howdy from Jacksonville, Florida. Great meeting you at the Las Vegas event. Accidental Landlord. It was nice to meet you too. I might have some questions about Jacksonville at some point. Stephan, howdy. For a rate and term refinance, should I only consider the rate and not closing costs since it's rolled into the new mortgage that tenants will pay, or should I consider how many months to break even? For a rate and term refinance, I kind of looked at how many months to break even. Some people will have an equation for that. I looked at what did it do to my cash flow, because I don't care about having a paid off property. All right. This is the thing that irritates so many people. If you're an investor, I don't care about a paid off property. You don't own it any more than if you have a mortgage on it. You have the same amount of equity. You either put money down to pay off what you owe, or you put money into the next investment. You own the same amount of equity on your properties. They did a study from 1970 to 2024. So it was a 54-year study. 90% of equity comes from appreciation, not pay down. So I don't care about paying it off. So refinancing, I look at how will it impact my cash flow. So if it reduces the amount of my payment by $200 a month, which would increase my cash flow by $200 a month, but it cost me $3,000 to do the refinance, that means I break even in 15 months. Like I can break it down by how many months to break even. People will do that. I basically looked at it. If I got more than a 1.5% lower interest rate, I would look at a rate and term. I just kept it kindergarten simple. I didn't do the months because I talked about at the beginning of this video, the two properties I'm looking at selling first are the ones that don't have debt on them. So the ones that do have debt, I hope perform better than all of my marriages until death do us part. And no, you can't fit all of my marriages on one hand. Alex, when you ask me that question, there is no right answer. So I plan on refinancing basically like it'll have mortgage forever because I want the asset protection from the bank. I want levered appreciation, levered depreciation. I don't want it paid off. I don't care about that. But I would also want it to increase my monthly cash flow. Life Unruled. Howdy. Porto, Portugal is beautiful. I got stuck in Lagos, Algarve in my 20s. Crazy party town. It is. I think Albufeira is a bit more for party town, but Lagos is got old towns, pretty fun. Chesla's son is going to Porto, I think next week for a couple weeks. Porto and what is the other one? It's the two cities up north where it's basically a hiking town. All the roads, all the streets are 30-degree angles. Curtis, question. Been running the numbers on a rental. Do you factor in management? When traveling, you may use higher handling level. I do not, because that's a tenant turnover thing only. That's not a monthly thing. When people talk about the reason you do 10% for management, even if you're only paying 6%, is because they take a month or half a month's rent to place a tenant. So that's way more than the percentage that you're paying. And then if they hire a handyman to send them out, they have an upcharge for materials, for labor, for everything. So there's a lot more cost to having a property manager. Also including, they want tenant turnover. You want tenant stability. So I do not run. I run 5% for vacancy, 10% for maintenance. Because, Curtis, we're in a high cost of living area. If I start investing in a cheaper area where a house only costs, or a duplex only costs $400,000 instead of 6 or 7, I might set aside a smaller or a bigger percentage, because the higher the cost of living, the less you need to set aside because the rents are more. Taxpayer of the Republic. Nice name. All the best with the market search. You will find what works for you. I will, because I'm not in a hurry. But thank you. Momo gets money. I haven't worked in a physical office since 2019. There you go. Manicanton. I always want to say Manny Patinkin, but Dion, sir, do you do proactive maintenance checks on water heaters, roof gutters, cleaning, etc.? So roof and gutters, not so much. I'm in Washington where it's not too important. Like we get a lot of rain, but the rain gutters, I'm not too worried about that. I'll have rain gutters done every couple of years. So routine maintenance. But with water heaters, for the first 10 years I invested, I never cared. I didn't look. I was like, when it breaks, I'll fix it. And then I was in Portugal in 2023, right after retiring. And I reached out to my handyman and I said, hey, let's go through all of the water heaters, because it just hit my radar for some reason. I think I was putting the course together. And I said, everything that's inside the house where if a leak happens, it could damage flooring. Anything over 8 years old, I want to replace. And if it's in the garage, because most of mine are, where a leak is just going to get the cement wet. If it's over 12 years old, I want to replace it. So I literally reached out to do that. And while I was in Portugal, I think I had 3 or 4 water heaters gone, because I remember being gone. I had 3 or 4 water heaters or 3 or 4 refrigerators. So the total was 7. One of them was 4, one of them was 3. I don't remember which way it went. But that was the most busy that handyman's been forever. And since then, it's been go and inspect anything over 8 years, inside, replace. Anything over 12 years, outside, replace. So that's the water heater for me. Some people put in the inline. I don't have any of those. All mine are electric. I don't have any gas. I think that's true. I have one place that does have gas heat. I don't know what the water heaters run on. I don't need to know. The handymen know when they go there to fix stuff. Momo gets money. I hate tenant turnovers in the middle of my first one, and it's messy. Tenant turnover suck. Usually the rent increase is nice. My most recent one, I should make a standalone video on this, but just, I don't know, because there's not really a teachable moment here. I rent to the guy like last year, a little over last year, 2024. Young, 22, he's got a really good job, good credit. So he met all the criteria. He moves in, girlfriend's family moves in, ruined his life. At some point, his life fell apart, and he reaches out and he says, "Hey, I got some legal trouble and I can't be here anymore." So I have tenant turnover. Alex, you were there. It looked disgusting. Like there was some electric that didn't work. There was trash everywhere. I probably spent total $1,300 on stuff because of the tenant, the 2,000-ish or less for the garage doors, because the garage door needed done forever. I should have done it last year, but it was working, so I left it. So on the stuff that the tenant cost, I probably spent $1,400 or $1,500. All that stuff that you saw there, Alex, everything that's done, the cleaning to everything. But I set aside 15% of rents. He's been there for over a year. So let's say it was just a year, but he's been there like 4 months longer than a year. So if it was just a year, it's 12 months, $2,100 rent, 15% of that is like $300 a month, a little bit more. So 300 times 12, $3,600. That tenant has given me $3,600 that went into an account to fix anything when he moved out. Not the deposit. This is the money we set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, and a turnover is part of vacancy. So $3,600 was set aside. That's the discipline of knowing to continue to set aside your money for future expenses, because they're going to happen. While I don't have any tenant turnover in the other units, and that much is being set aside on them too. So that's that property is probably setting aside over 36 per unit per year times 4. I'm happy to spend the $1,400 or $1,500 to do the clean out and the repairs, and then the almost $2,000, like $1,800, $1,900 to put the garage door on. Tenants pay for those repairs. It doesn't feel like it in the beginning. That first 6 months to a year when you buy a property, it feels like it comes right out of your pocket, because it really does. But once you build your reserves and you have the discipline to continue to set aside 15%, this is a disagreement the lumberjack landlord and I have. He likes to run cash flow without the expenses, right? He says, "No, I don't have to do that because cash flow handles all of this stuff." Yes, it does. Mine doesn't. Cash flow has pretty much handled all of my stuff, but I like to have what this property stand alone by itself if it was setting aside the 15%. So that when Matt replaces a garage door, he feels the $2,000. He's like, "Oh, I spent $2,000. That I would have $2,000 more this month if I didn't replace this garage door." And I get it. That's the emotions. I totally get it. I don't feel this $2,000 because it comes from money from that entire unit over the last several years that's being set aside for maintenance like that. You don't replace a garage door every year. You replace a garage door every, 20 years? I've replaced like 3 total. On all of my properties in over 10 years, I've replaced 3. I've had 1 or 2 worked on, but not replaced. Bow Rivers. I'm refinancing currently with Convoy from 8 to 6 to 6.5. That, along with rental increases in the next year or two, will finally take me from break even to profitable with my 5 single family portfolio. Nice. Thank you for the 3 amigos suggesting them. I appreciate it. I'm glad it's working out for you. Could you also look at, now that you've had them for a while, increasing your reserves? Contact your insurance company and say, "I would like to raise my deductible to the highest that they will allow." I do 10,000 whenever possible, because you're less likely to have a claim. You'll actually fix this stuff with your own money, because that reduces your premium, which could also increase your cash flow. There's a few other things. So I did a video, the 17 ways that a landlord makes more money without raising rent. Angry Capitalist. Howdy. Can you mention the name of the software or application that you use to manage your properties in Handyman? Again, Hemlane, Hemlane. The CEO of Hemlane comes on and does videos like once a month. It's probably time to have her on here. She was at the One Rental at a Time event. I'm slowly transitioning. I didn't just like go to all my existing tenants and say, hey, you have to learn how to use HEMLane. It's when I put a new tenant in place or have a tenant turnover or buy the next place, I'll put it on HEMLane. I have tenants with flip phones that don't have interwebs at their house. I'm not going to make them learn a portal, but the other ones can. Take a hike. Howdy. I shifted my buy box to be in a single family house. I realized my mistake in my market, and I'll be going back to 2 to 4 unit class C next one I get. Every market's different, and there are some where the single family house makes sense. They don't in mine. And I mean, there's a few reasons why I prefer 2 to 4 unit. I kind of like duplexes more than fourplexes, even though with conventional loans, you'd have up to 40 units in your name if you went all fourplexes. But they are more similar to a single family house, less tenant turnover. Jared, howdy. Good to see you there. Praying no turnovers anytime soon. Eventually, you'll look forward to 1 or 2 at a time, not a bunch. It's a good thing. Are you muted? I are not muted. Hopefully, I haven't been muted the whole time. Nope, I think you just have your sound down. People are saying muted. I can hear. Maybe refresh your browser. No sound. Oh, how long's that been going on? That is so weird. Maybe the live stream's over. Anybody texting me that the sound's not on? That usually happens. I did get some text. Matt, the lumberjack landlord. Just reach out to this guy to see if he's willing to debate this topic with me on my channel. When he inevitably ignores me, I will do the expose video on him. This is from Millennial Mike. We owned 16 family rental properties and we were broke. That's a good debate. Charles, no sound. Everyone is saying no sound. That would suck. Have I been silent for 20 minutes? Well, I got sound. Let me see how far forward it went. No, I've got sound on mine, so bizarre. Let me turn this on. Okay. There we go. Emperor ran off with the squirrel's groove. Could be a StreamYard thing, I think. Brian Builds, well, thank you for that. No sound. A whole bunch of people lost sound there for a minute. That is so weird. Huh. Don't worry, when I was muted, I said the one extremely smart thing I'll ever say this year. Other people can hear him. I need to refresh your browser, guys. I can hear him. Like last time, I can hear him. There we go. Lisbon. That's what's by Porto. Yeah, there you go. Repeating, help me. Yep. YouTube must have messed up. Jeffrey White. Howdy. Also going on the cruise is my favorite real estate investing wizard. Just needs a Gandalf beard next. There you go. Hope you find your next market sooner than you think. Texas and Tennessee are solid. Does Tesla have a preference? I think she likes Texas. Something about Tennessee, I think she associated it with Kentucky, and Ashley, Cody's wife, gave us some reasons not to invest in Kentucky. But Tennessee would probably be the way to go. Tesla, I believe, prefers Texas. Could be because of the food, the weather. Could be because she wants animals and she knows that if we move to Texas, we're most likely to go to the way I've normally lived my life. Like I've always had horses and cows and goats, and I have a house pig, but I don't like pigs in a pig field. Yeah. So she knows that's most likely to happen in Texas. Well, it can happen anywhere. Gustaville or Rome, Georgia might have your kind of weather and not too far or too close to the Antifa Atlanta orbit. Joining late, but howdy. Howdy. Corridor Chris. Just did the same with Convoy, a great example of getting the property and holding and optimizing. There you go. People just had to refresh. Sorry about the sound, everybody. Hit the like button, only if you have sound. Thanks. I missed the first half of the show. Are you selling your Washington properties and investing in other markets? Matt Canton, I am not. I purchased this duplex that I'm in as a retirement home and my first BRRRR. Didn't like the BRRRR. Doesn't have any debt on it. I'm planning on selling it because it's so far from all my other rentals. Like I want my properties spread out. But this one is so far, it takes an entire new team of handymen and contractors. I don't like that. So I'm selling the one that I'm living in. A couple of contributing factors. One, the IRS 121 rule says for 50% of this property, because it's a duplex, I don't have to pay any capital gains. There's a bunch of money here without debt on it, so I'm not losing a low interest rate mortgage. And it would give me the funds to deploy. I have a VA loan I can use too. I've never used it yet. So I'll probably be using that to buy another property. So I'll have cash to deploy. If I find a market that I like, I'll probably sell one more property in Washington, the other one that's paid off, because the mortgages are worth keeping here as much as the properties are. And I'll be looking for another market. So that was and Jared, you can hear me? Good. Thank you. Thank you all for that. Just lagged a little. Yeah, the internet. Let me tell you, when you're trying a new game, the internet lag is no bueno. And the photographer for my rental doesn't shoot on weekends. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Okay. You got laggy for a second, so that's the internet being stupid. If you had to roll with single-family houses instead of duplexes, fourplexes, how many would you target for a small and mighty investor if it made sense in your market? Well, it depends on how much debt you have, what your interest rates are, what the rents are. So the markets are totally different. Single-family houses in Washington, I wouldn't own any. They would have to be like complete burrs, purchased all cash. The return on investment would be so low. I still have never seen one that would cash flow because I don't do rehabs. I don't do... this burr was the one and only I'm doing. I like to buy from the MLS, tenants in place, preferably, needing the least amount of work. So it would have to be a market where they made sense. And it really comes down to how much. So it's how much do you need every month to spend? How much of a safety buffer do you need to feel comfortable? And how much do you want to be able to continue to invest? So like those are the three math metrics. And for me, I spend around $4,000 a month, and because I drive paid off vehicle, I house hack, so I don't have a housing expense, right? The biggest expenses most people have, I don't have those, so 4,000 is plenty. So 16,000 was my buffer. When it was 4 times that, I figured I never have to work again. That's a big enough buffer to handle inflation. It'll benefit from inflation. I can handle black swan events, a health event, or anything like that. I can handle long evictions. I can handle rents coming down. I can handle a recession, a prolonged government shutdown. I can handle all of those things. I still generally live on 4,000 a month, even when traveling. Like I had to challenge myself to be able to spend money in Thailand to come up to that. So the money keeps piling up to invest. That's important too. I wouldn't just get to what I need and then retire. I want to be able to continue to invest because you spent a decade building these skills. Why not have enough money coming in to continue to use those skills? Then it's how much do they cash flow and how much do you have to invest and how much time do you have? Because you can invest $1 million today. Like I invested $320,000 out of my own money. $300,000 from rent was reinvested. So $620,000 was invested to create $240,000 a year in cash flow. After all expenses, after all taxes, after all everything, after setting aside for future expenses. But it didn't happen because I invested it. It happened because I invested in 2013. So you got 13 years there. 2015, you've got 11 years there. It's how long do you own the properties for rent increases, opportunities to refinance, chances for value add, like all those things that don't happen just buying properties. It's buying properties and then owning them long enough to make improvements on your portfolio. You mentioned a week or two, maybe doing an insurance video. Let me know if you do. Yeah, I need to make that insurance video. I still do. YouTube glitched. I had to relaunch the app. Okay, nice. That sounds good. Thank you for that. Is that Carlo Rossi? Ashley invests in Tennessee. I think she does, but it was what she said about Kentucky that turned Tesla off. Go Texas from Austin. There you go. If you want insurance agent input, who is also an investor, sorry, hit send accidentally sooner. There you go. But Nick, off topic. Dion, are you a Game of Thrones guy? Do you feel you watch more shows and movies in retirement or much less? So I listen to all kinds of audiobooks. I've listened to all of the R.R. Martin books, from Night Watchers to Game of Thrones to House of the Dragon to Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I generally will listen to books to have a conversation. Kind of like, I hate Stephen King. He's a terrible author. His books are crap. But so many people have read his books. I listen to almost all of them, so I can hold a conversation about almost all of his books. Right. So I'm that kind of a reader. But I also, finance, real estate, investing, those type of books, retirement, so I have a blend of books that I'll do. As far as shows go, I'll watch while I game, because I game to stay in touch with friends and my kids and people that are all over the country or the world. So there'll always be something in the background, and I will watch while I'm working out. So I've watched a ton of shows, but it is usually while doing some other activity. So Game of Thrones guy, I'm a fan. Night of the Seven Kingdoms is not terrible. Yeah. So I'm trying to think if I watch more now than I did before, because I was always watching while doing something. Yeah. So I probably watch more because I'm not working now. There's always something playing in the background. Rental renovator. I'll soon be renovating a house that will be rent ready quick. The small ADU in the backyard is going to take me quite a while. What should I tell the future tenants? I would tell your contractors to be aware of those tenants. If you end up renting to somebody that works at night and sleeps during the day, you're going to have more challenge with them. So if you're renting to a tenant who does have a night job and has to sleep during the day, you might want to say, there's going to be construction going on for a month or 3 or however long it's going to take. Be aware of that before you move in. Like, set the expectations early. If you have tenants that don't and have a regular schedule, make sure they know city ordinances. Make sure they know when you can start to make noise and when you shouldn't, and any inconvenience of water being shut off or power being shut off that's going to impact your tenants. Just let them know up front. Be transparent. I think people are more used to it than you think when they move into places like that. That flipping nurse. When you made offers, are you using a letter of intent or seller realtor's form? And sometimes a letter from the lender talking about my strength in borrowing, how many deals we've done together, that I'm a strong closer, something from the lender saying that this looks like a deal that's going to go through. So, but it's just, I use an agent and make an offer through them. It's all DocuSign. LOI, in my opinion, is more for commercial. So I've used LOIs for the trucking school when we were buying properties for them. Flex time. Thanks, Dion. You got me interested in real estate when before it never made sense anyway. Other people taught it. Thank you. I hope the information helps. And sometimes the information I'm helping won't make you a real estate investor. It might point out how investing can change your life. And if you have more time, you make more, you spend less, so you have more to invest. You have time for compound interest to do its thing. Maybe stocks makes more sense. If you're like Nick, lead, pray, hodl, maybe crypto is your thing. But make more than you spend, save and invest the difference, and sprinkle in time. And financial freedom is possible with almost any investing strategy. Cody, howdy. Good to see you there. Take a hike. Did you also move into the Class C duplexes? Yes, I did. I took Alex to one the other day. It was definitely a Class C. Lived in it for 7 years. Then I moved into the fourplex, which is Class C. Lived there 2 or 3 years. Then I rented a place for a while. Actually, Cody came there a couple times. And then I moved into this duplex, which I would say is Class C, but it's waterfront Class C. So it's ritzier, but it's still a Class C property. And we are all caught up on those. It is 5:30. Sorry about the sound cutting out there. I hope to see you on Thursday when I have my rant about the girl who cried wolf and the idiots who fell for it. I hope you all have a week full of amazing. Beth, howdy. Good to see you here. It was great to see you in Vegas. If you are in the members if you're a member of this channel, in 30 minutes, we have a members only call. You probably won't get notification. Notification sucks, but you're going to use Zoom so we can all jump on together. If you're a member, we'll all be on Zoom together. We're going to analyze deals. You can bring a deal for us to look at, or we can pick one of the markets that I'm looking at and see what I think of the deals we find there. Have a day full of amazing.